My home theater trinity. Let's talk about the three devices that I base essentially all of my home theater entertainment around. So I recently did a video talking about ideas of like digital minimalism and do we have too many sources in our home theaters? Do we need so many devices, especially when they're kind of redundant? We've got lots of things kind of doing the same things, and I do even currently in my setup right now. So I was musing on the idea, if I took myself down to one device, what would it be and why would it be that device? But I think in the reality, to kind of satisfy all of my nerdy needs, I think three devices is probably the sweet spot for me, and so I wanted to kind of expand on the thoughts of the prior video, linked here, and it'll be linked again at the end, and talk about if I focused my entertainment around three devices, what would they be? And those three would be Apple TV, Kaleidescape, and a gaming computer. So I'll talk about the Kaleidescape first. I think no secret on the channel, I make a fair amount of deep and wide content about Kaleidescape. I love the platform. I've been an owner and a user for several years. I have a Strato C and a 12 terabyte compact Tera. It's really kind of the number one source that we use in our theater. Our theater is very dedicated on watching movies, and that's just quite honestly one of the best, if not the best, platforms for doing so. Ease of use, access, elegance, convenience, quality, all of that stuff rolls together. Plus the level of integration that Kaleidescape gives. Being able to sit down in the theater and have Kaleidescape work with Control 4, work with the JVC projector, all this cool stuff just happens automatically, that people spend thousands and thousands of dollars to add other processors and other elements to the chain to achieve. And I will be talking about that a little more specifically in another video. But suffice to say, I'm a fan of the platform, and in my home theater device trifecta, device trinity, Kaleidescape kind of sits at the pinnacle of the home theater use. There's nothing like being able to have a newer release movie available to watch in high quality, high fidelity, high bitrate 4K HDR long before it might come out on physical media. Be able to buy that thing for 20 bucks, 25 bucks, sometimes 35 and 40, which is a problem. Have it downloaded to the system in 10 minutes, make the popcorn, grab some snacks, and be ready to watch that film. It just complements the whole dedicated home theater structure, use, just so well. So number two device is my gaming PC. Right now sitting here, I've got a 3090 Ti based gaming PC, very powerful computer, on the order of $4,000 when I built it, mostly because when I built it, that GPU was over $2,000 itself. Now those cards are down, hitting close to $1,000. So thankfully, the inflation, some of the inflation of building a high power gaming PC has started to actually contract and come down a little bit. We'll see what happens when the new generation of cards comes out, hopefully later this year. But we have a lot of options in the gaming world. We've got consoles, we've got handhelds, we've got mobile, we've got PC. And so I really still enjoy some AAA games from the big publishers. As much as I don't have a lot of time to play everything that I would like to play, when I do want to play something, I really value fidelity. It's a reason that I hold the Kaleidescape in high esteem. And when you want gaming fidelity, when you have the means and you're okay with the complexity, there's just no substitute for a gaming PC. Time and time again, game release to game release. I still have a PlayStation 5, I still have an Xbox sitting here at least for the moment, and major games, I check them out, I put them up, I switch back and forth in my zones, in my system, between that PC and those consoles, and every time, every game, the PC just absolutely wins. I'm pushing on many games already, full 4K, maxed out settings, approaching 120 FPS, hitting 120 FPS in a lot of games. When those 4000 series GPUs come out, it's just going to lock in 4K 120 Ultra in just so many titles, the way that these cards are looking to be so powerful. And yeah, sometimes PC can be a bit of a hassle. It's an integrative hassle. It generates noise in my system, and I had to get some hum X's and deal with that. Navigating it, needing a wireless little remote keyboard and kind of touchpad combo versus being able to just hit a controller and power on. There are massive conveniences and benefits to the consoles, and I think consoles pack a lot of power and a lot of value in what you get for $400 or $500 nowadays. But all in all, high-end gaming, AAA gaming, the PC just wins. And I recently did the video as well. Spider-Man, the Sony PlayStation game, just came out on PC. I went ahead and picked that up right away, fired that up on the computer, running 4K maxed out ray tracing, all of that stuff, 70, 80, 90, 100 FPS, flipping back and forth between the PC and the PS5 version, the remastered version of Spider-Man, running in the performance ray tracing mode, and there's no comparison. There's absolutely no comparison. So in that regard, I would accept the cost. I would accept the extra complexity. I manage that, I think, very well. I keep my PC, this computer particularly, very, very, very dedicated to gaming. I did some mining on it on the side, but mining's kind of like died out and fallen off. So my Windows install is clean. There's nothing else on there. Just the game setup, just the games themselves and the game launchers. I keep it up to date, and so it runs smooth, it runs clean, very, very focused on the gaming elements only. There are still some other downsides, perhaps as my kids get a little older and we want to do maybe multiplayer gaming and such, but for now, I think for the foreseeable future, most of our family gaming is, same screen, couch co-op kind of stuff, and in that regard, PC is still pretty awesome. I can use my favorite Xbox controller to play games from Sony or anybody else, and there's just so many reasons that that PC is great in my opinion. So that satisfies, 1, my high-end movie watching needs. That satisfies 2, my high-end gaming needs. And then, of course, number 3, should be no surprise, Apple TV, the device that fills out the remainder of everything else that I would do for entertainment in my system. It's the primary device that I use in the living room. Of course, I have one set up in the theater as well. We subscribe to YouTube TV. We consume that on the Apple TV. Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO Max, anything that we would do from a streaming perspective is on the Apple TV. We do Apple Music. We can access photos. If I download something that I want to play locally, I can do the Apple home sharing on that device. Can access podcasts, AirPlay, all that stuff. We use iPhones. We use iPads. I have a MacBook as my computer. Very Apple ecosystem centric here. And that device just makes the most sense for us. And still fills in a bit of the high-end gaps in the home theater space as well, because of course I can rip physical media to MKV files, I can put them on my Synology, and I can access them there via the Infuse app. I think Infuse is a really great piece of software, really great Apple ecosystem app. It does a lot of things. It has some gaps too. It has some deficiencies as well. Nothing's perfect, and there's always going to be trade-offs. But for the odd movie, perhaps that we would watch in the theater, we would want to watch in higher fidelity, that maybe not be available on Kaleidescape, or for some reason the physical media release is superior in some way to the Kaleidescape version, Infuse can step in and fill those gaps very easily. And then, of course, the Apple TV with all of the Apple One subscription that we have also fills in a little bit of like lighter gaming fare. My kids love Sneaky Sasquatch and some of the other stuff that comes out on Apple TV. When you just kind of want to jump into some type of a game real fast, real simple, have some fun without the bit of the overhead or the complexities of booting up into a computer, getting into launchers, launching games, more loading and all of that. Apple gaming is really fun, really great. And there's some goofy, real simple, real accessible, approachable, fun stuff that is on Apple Arcade or has come through Apple Arcade that we've really enjoyed in our household as well. So those 3 devices, I'll add one more. If I actually did a quad, the other device that I'm considering essentially keeping in the system, playing a little bit with my son yesterday kind of evidenced this as well. The honorable mention, the dark horse of the system would be the Nintendo Switch. So the thing that I love about PC is it's a funneling platform now. And what I mean by that is everything Xbox is available on PC, everything Sony is steadily making its way, and we're going to have day and date Sony games on PC. All the third-party publishers are there. A lot of publishers are making PC now their lead platform. The only odd one out, the only odd duck, is Nintendo. And yeah, you can run emulators, and I've done it. I've set up Yuzu and played around with it quite a bit, and there's a lot of really great development happening, some really skilled engineering and all of that stuff going on to make Switch games playable on Yuzu. But I don't consider that to be a long-term Nintendo solution. In some ways, kind of like ripping physical media. It has a lot of pitfalls. You're not always going to be guaranteed that the latest, greatest games are going to work. There might be some lag time. Not every game even really works all that well to begin with, so you're going to potentially encounter problems. There's a lot more involved in terms of like managing save games, and certain elements of Nintendo games are so heavily based on interacting with physical stuff, add-ons and toy pieces and whatever. So you've got that dimension to it. And eventually there's going to be a new Switch or some new Nintendo hardware release, and will those games be able to be played in Yuzu and when? So I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't rely on it as my Nintendo solution. If you're gonna, in my opinion, for me, having a Nintendo, having a way to play Nintendo games in our system means just having the Nintendo hardware. I don't want to mess around with the emulators and rely on an uncertain future in that respect. So Nintendo Switch would be the fourth one. I've been a gamer since 1984-ish, maybe even before then. The Nintendo Entertainment System, the original, was my first console. I like Mario games. I like Nintendo stuff. It is also fun, approachable, family-oriented, same-screen fun kind of fare. A step up, certainly above Apple TV things, but not to the level of complexity of the PC. And having the Switch also kind of gives my kids the ability to play on something with a little more, a wider array of games, with a little more complexity and involvement than what Apple Arcade provides, without them having to always go to the PC. Although even my son is pretty much perfectly adapted now at being able to fire up the computer, use the keyboard, navigate to stuff, get into Steam, start a game, use the controllers and be good. But when they have friends over and something goes wrong on the computer, it's a pain. So having the Switch, having 4 controllers for it, kids just want to play something, a little Mario Kart, a little Mario Sports, whatever it might be. I think the Switch really fills a nice gap. So I'm actually right now in the process of talking myself into keeping it. My son really wants it, as we've been talking about cutting back on some devices and what would it be. I think ultimately those 4 are kind of the perfect quad, certainly the base trifecta, and then maintaining or keeping the Nintendo console to have access to that stuff also makes a lot of sense. And from a discrete device perspective, it also fits quite nicely, because if you're setting things up in a living room, or you're setting things up potentially with a television and everything is plugging in HDMI by HDMI, most TVs nowadays only have 4 ports. If you need to make decisions, make some cuts, what devices do you really want? What ones would you focus on using? That's a nice matchup of 4 devices, all with specific reasons and purpose behind them, why I'm keeping them, what I would do with them in order to have discrete inputs on a 4-input device. In my theater, everything's switching kind of through my AVM70. So there you go. That's probably where I'm going to end up. I think here very soon. I'm seeing less and less reason, especially now with Spider-Man, to keep that PlayStation and these Xboxes maintained. I'm still paying for Xbox Live. I really have no reason to do that. I can cut that stuff out, pull myself back to these devices, and then we'll see what the future holds. So sound off in the comments. Let me know some more. What's your device stack? What's your sources? Why do you have the ones you have? Some folks commented on that in the one device video. Well, I've got this for this and I've got that for that. I could never go down to one or whatever. So in a balanced multi-input source setup, sound off in the comments. Let me know what you're using and why. Otherwise, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Please do all the regular YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Look down in the description for a number of easy ways to support the channel. And thanks so much for watching. Come on back for more home theater fun.